Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel Rob Sandstrom Designs. Have you ever had the situation where you had an odd-shaped object? In this case, I'm going to be talking about a cookie, but I've used a couple others like a long slab, and needed to put them on your CNC and carve them with a sign or a piece of art or design to make them come out the way you wanted to. It's not quite as easy as if you have a square or rectangle. You need some special techniques to be able to put it on the CNC and then have it carve exactly how you designed it in your CNC software. In this case, I'm using vCarve Pro. In this video, I'll be discussing just how I took a cookie. I had designed it in vCarve Pro to put a multicolor sign on it that I will be demonstrating throughout a series of videos, and set it up so that I could carve the sign exactly the way I designed it in the software. Not only that, I had the extra added challenge of ensuring that I could take that sign, that cookie, on and off my CNC because I was making it a multicolored epoxy sign, meaning I had to put on successive layers of colored epoxy, and so therefore I would carve into the epoxy before. So each time it had to be located on the CNC in a very precise manner to ensure the carving turned out right. Following that, I needed to surface the cookie to get it ready for the carve. So this is the third in a series of videos in which I go through the process of first getting a cookie, a wooden cookie, an oblong shape, taking it, finding, importing it into the software and designing the sign, then needing to take and find the center of that, because in the design I used the center point of that cookie, and then taking that cookie from the point where we've designed it, mounting it on the CNC, and actually carving the sign and pouring the epoxy. So I have a series of videos, and you can find that playlist in the description of this video. And if you haven't seen the previous two videos, which are on designing the cookie or designing the sign for the cookie and finding the center, you may want to go look at those now, or if not now, later. So after I mount the cookie in this video and get it aligned in this video and show you how I go about doing that through a series of tweaks back and forth, you'll get the drift when you watch the video. Then I talk about how I actually mount a sled, because I use a sled to actually put the cookie, the thing I'm carving, onto the CNC and mount it to the CNC. And then I used dowel alignment holes to allow me to make sure I get it back on the exact location every time. Once I have all that done, then I do a quick demonstration of how I surface this cookie. With that, let's go ahead and get started in the video. Now, here's a couple of examples of projects that I actually have had to use this sled technique for. And I'll show those right here. One is a slab project that I laid out Torrey pines on there in multicolor epoxy and some 3D carving. It looked like this right here. And then the other one is this slab itself. So let's go ahead and get started into the video. You'll notice I've got this marker that I've gotten from Laguna. It's got a Sharpie in it, and I just want to see where the text lines up here to make sure that what I think I'm going to be cutting is actually what's going to happen before I start cutting into the actual cookie. Okay, so the pin marked in right here and right here, and now I've got to look at that and see what I think. I think it actually might have moved the wrong way from what I wanted it to move. Yep. So this has actually moved further down, and I wanted it to move further up. So that was in the wrong direction. So that means I need to twist it the other way. Okay, I'm not seeing this move down as much as I want it to, so I'm going to go ahead and get started again here in a second and move it just a little bit more. It hasn't moved much at all, so I need to move it just a touch more. All right, now we're at the point where I've marked it several times. I think I'm pretty close, and now the marker has gotten written over enough times I can't really tell the final version. So I'm going to put a scratch coat on with the vBit and see how that looks. Remember, it's going to be barely a scratch, and the surfacing bit will take it off. Everything's locked down, so you're going to see the bit come down and move across, and I've sped up the tool path. Okay, this is going to be about as good as I get it, I think. If this is right, the rest should be right. I'll just do a real quick scratch test of the saw blade, and then we'll go from there. Okay, now I've got this aligned. Just one more test. I'm going to check the center of the blade and see how it looks. And we'll do a scratch cut like we've done with this, and then we will go from there. These are the two lowest spots, so I'm going to zero it right before the lowest spot there. Remember, there's a hump in the middle of this thing. Okay, now looking at this thing up close, it looks like we've got a pretty good center. Let's take a quick look here. Here's the edge of the saw blade. It's about 3 3/4 inches. Over here, a little less, about 3 1/8 inch. But this is thicker than this, so we expect that. If we go from the edge, we've got 5 inches right there, and a little over 5 inches right there. So, but it's an odd shape. 3 1/2 here, about 3 3/4 here. Okay, at this time, I did all the scratch cuts to get it as centered as I possibly could on this weird looking shape. Called my daughter out. She validated it. Looks okay. Looks as centered as I can get it. And so now, the next step is to make sure it's locked in place for all of the various pores. So to make sure it's locked in place in all the various pores, I've set up to drill alignment holes, and I will be using these dowel pieces. And I used this dowel jig that I shot in an earlier video, and it's somewhere around 0.429, 0.43, 0.428. So I'm going to go with 0.429 at first, and if I need to make it bigger, I will, so that I can align these dowels anywhere I want. So I'll put one here, one over here, and then one somewhere down here towards the center. So that's what you're going to be seeing me do, is drilling a dowel hole. I've already zeroed the bit. Okay, the size of this board is right here. So if I go past that, then I'll know I'm all the way into the board. Okay, I'm about a 1/2 inch into the board, which is what I wanted. Okay, I've reset my XY0 and located it. I made sure it's not going to hit this, or at least it shouldn't. And so I'll drill my next hole right here. So what I'm doing there is making sure it's going all the way down into the spoiler board. We're now at the point where I've got the board fastened down. I've got the sled fastened to the CNC with screws in the hardboard, and I've got these alignment dowels so that I can always get back in the right location. We're at the point where I'm going to surface this cookie. I previously had measured to see where the high spots and low spots are. So this is the absolute high spot, and this one's a little lower, and this is a little lower, and these two on the sides are the lowest. So it basically has a hump. And so now I'm going to start shaving this down. And since this is the high spot and this is the actual semi-high spot, this is 1.7 millimeters less than this one, and I'm usually going to try to take off about 1 millimeter at a time. And so it's going to be a manual process. It won't be real fast, but I'll have full control, and that's what I like to have. I'm using a surfacing bit that's 2 inches in diameter from a company called Rip Precision Tools. We've just finished the first pass, and as you can see, it's taken off quite a bit off this area. So this area, this part of the sign is actually going to be thinner than the rest by 1/8 of an inch or so, simply because of the shape of this cookie and how it was cut. Now that we've got a spot here, and we can see that a lot of it has been surfaced, but not nearly enough because it really slopes down here on the edges. That'll be the last part to disappear. We're going to start taking it down 1 millimeter at a time until we get it perfectly flat. So to make sure that I can see it better, I'm going to actually do the old trick with my pencil out here on the edges, because on the edges is where the last parts will be to disappear. At this time in the process, we've actually finished flattening this cookie, getting it ready for the first carve cut of the epoxy inlay. We've covered what I wanted to cover in the instructional part of this video, and I hope you found an item or two that you can use in a project you're working on. In the video, we first started out by talking about how I would check the alignment of my design on the thing I was carving, i.e. my cookie. And I did that by focusing on the design being in the center of the cookie, and knowing the center of that cookie, I could move it around and test the design a couple different times. We first started with a marker pen that anybody can get if they want. I'll put a link in the description on where you could pick up that marker pen. And then we moved to a scratch coat, and once we were satisfied that everything was right, we went ahead and started mounting that sled that the cookie was on to my CNC and putting in alignment holes so that we could take the cookie on and off of the CNC. And last but not least, we went ahead and surfaced the cookie. This is the third in a series of videos that I'm making from A to Z on how I went from taking this wooden cookie, designing it, finding the center, mounting it, and then putting an epoxy sign on it. So if you haven't seen those, you might want to check those out in the playlist that I've added, and I've put a link in the video. I'm hoping that you are picking up a trick or two as you go through this series, and it's my pleasure to bring the work to you so that you can see how I approached this project. There could be 100 different ways, but using that sled seems to be something that works really well for me when I have odd-shaped objects. You might want to look into that, being able to mount your object to a sled, and then you can mount the sled to the CNC, and then you can put alignment holes in that sled so you can take it on and off if that's needed. It works out pretty handy for multicolored epoxy projects, which, as you know, I do several of those. If you like what you're seeing, I appreciate you giving me a thumbs up and sharing with others. That'll help build the channel. Also, a comment is always useful. If you want to be aware of the future videos I release, then hitting that subscribe button and the bell will help you do that. Until we meet again in this medium, I hope all is well with you, and I look forward to seeing you in the future. Have a good day.